Oh god, this place? Fine. 1 minute boss guides for Uldaman Legacy of Tyr, let's go. Taking a little trip down memory lane, the first bosses you're going to face in this instance are the Lost Dwarves. This fight is a mini council 3-target cleave encounter, and each dwarf has their own ability. Also, each of them will yield once reaching 5% health. As a tank, you should keep them all stacked whenever possible. Be careful though, because Balog, who is in green, will actually randomly cast cleave, and it's going to do exactly what you think it will. Balog will cast Heavy Arrow as well, which is another targeted frontal. Players should be watching which way this is facing and moving out of the way, or they're going to take a lot of damage and be knocked backwards. Eric, the little one in red, will also throw daggers at enemies. Healers just be sure to spot heal this. He will also occasionally leap around the room at players, and just be sure to dodge his Skullcracker ability indicated by the circle on the ground. Finally, Olaf will throw a shield that interacts similarly to chain lightning casts, and will bounce to nearby players. Anyone targeted with this should spread out. He will also occasionally cast Defensive Bulwark. Just kick this to prevent the damage reduction that it provides the other dwarves. Lastly, the dwarves will periodically jump into their flying longboat that will unleash a barrage of cannon fire at players. Everyone should stack up and move as a group to prevent the fire from taking up too much space. Ideally, you'll cleave these dwarves down evenly, but if you were to focus one, Eric is the only one who's difficult to move, so I recommend defeating him first. Any dwarves defeated will man the longboat for the rest of the encounter. Bromach is a super straightforward fight, and any of you AoE padlords will enjoy this encounter. He will first use Thundering Slam. This is pretty easy to avoid for now. Just be sure to get out of this as fast as you can. Bromach then bellows with a Call of the Deep, calling multiple trogs to assist him in combat. There will always be 4 of them, and one of them is a caster. Try to interrupt this mob as soon as possible to help group up the trogs on top of Bromach to maximize your cleave. Next, he will summon a Quaking Totem. Quaking Totems will deal AoE damage to everyone in your party every 2 seconds, so it's imperative to destroy it as soon as possible. Once it is destroyed, it will stun all active trogs and Bromach, increasing their damage taken by 200%. Shortly after summoning this totem, Bromach will cast Bloodlust, which does exactly what you think it does. It increases Bromach and all trogs' attack speed by 30%, making it more difficult to dodge Thundering Slam. Prioritize the totem and cleave all the adds down, and this fight will be a cakewalk. Sentinel Talondras is mostly a tank encounter. The main mechanic with this slippery snake lady is her inexorable buff. This causes her to be immune to stuns. She will start with 2 stacks, and you need to remove both of these stacks and then stun her before she reaches 100 energy. You will do this with the resonating orbs that spawn, and simply drag her through this while your group avoids them. Throughout the fight, Talondras will cast earthen shards that will need to be spot healed by a healer. Also, Crushing Stomp will knock all players back from Talondras, so don't be between her and the orbs. So, if you don't stun her before reaching 100 energy, she will become empowered with Titanic Energy, or whatever it is. This will grant her 50% more damage for 20 seconds, which can easily become lethal in higher keys. Make sure the tank is continuously walking her through resonating orbs, and you should be Gucci. Emberon is a 2-phase encounter. During this first phase, he will target a tank with a massive frontal called Searing Clap. Tanks don't strafe, and everyone else should avoid this. This will apply a pretty hefty debuff that does damage over time. In earlier testing, it could be spell reflected or diffused for some extra damage. Shortly after this, unstable embers will be afflicted to each and every member of your party. Healers need to be sure to push out some big group healing here and make sure DPS players use some defensives. During this phase as well, Emberon will activate a few of the keepers around the room that will shoot out projectiles at players. Be sure to dodge these to avoid taking extra damage. Occasionally, Emberon will dash towards the center of the room and will become immune to damage, thus beginning phase 2. Originally, I thought this was health percentage based, but it seems like it's based on a timer, so it's important to maximize boss damage in phase 1. Anyways, during this time, the active keepers will become vulnerable and need to be destroyed in order to get out of this phase. Rotate around the room, defeating each of the active keepers, and more importantly, dodge the rotating fire wave beams. Rinse and repeat. Chrono-Lord Deios is a pretty interesting boss. While he has some pretty standard dragon mechanics, including a frontal breath that targets the tank along with a wind buffet that knocks players back, he will also apply some debuffs to a few party members. Healers should look to dispel this whenever possible, though dispelling the debuff will deal damage to everyone within 8 yards, so it's imperative to stay spread out. The major mechanic in this fight will be Eternity Zones that will be spawned by Deios. These create void zones on the floor that will reduce players' haste by 30% and deal arcane damage. Once Chrono-Lord Deios depletes his temporal energy, he will attempt to rewind the time flow, which will deal damage to all players, but will cause all Eternity Zones to be turned into temporal zones, which increase players' haste by 50%, though the pools will shrink over time. At this point, all players should jump into these pools on the ground during this channel. Rinse and repeat until Chrono-Lord Deios is defeated. Good luck, have fun, bye!